I'm Dr. Melissa Longo. Welcome to Everyday Rockstar Moms, where every episode I'll interview moms just like you who are rocking it in their homes, raising their children, managing their households, building their careers, working on their relationships, dealing with challenges, finding success, trying to find balance, and themselves along the way. Every episode you'll hear from women just like you of all ages and stages of motherhood, sharing their stories, life experiences, and leaving you with practical tips, ideas, and inspiration to help you rock your life. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Barb Andrews. Barb is a grandma. She's a 63-year-old single mother of 2 grown children and 1 beautiful granddaughter. She is a holistic nutritionist and an educator, and she's got lots of amazing wisdom to share with us today. Take a listen. Good morning, Barb. Thanks so much for being here with me today.
My pleasure entirely.
It's, again, another pleasure for me having someone sitting here in person with me rather than doing it, long distance. But I'd love to chat with you. I mean, I've known you, as have many people in the community, because of your work as a nutritionist, holistic nutritionist, and also your love of children. I mean, you're probably one of the most gifted educators I've ever met. But for the people who don't know you, can you just start by telling everyone a little bit about where you're at now? The other special thing about Barb, for you listeners, is that she is a grandma. And I love having grandmas on the show because you just have so much more life experience to share with us.
I love being a grandma. You will always hear how people say it really changes your life. And I'll tell you, the minute I found out I was going to be a grandma, the world looked different. You can't explain it. It's just richer and fuller and scarier.
Yeah.
There's things that wouldn't have bothered me as much before as now. Everything you think about for the children it so hits home.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be an advocate for postponing vaccines until we really had to have them, and now I'm just seeing how it's really important to know what you're doing with that and getting the facts.
Mm-hmm.
It
probably changes for you the more you get involved, and your passion for natural health and holistic nutrition too, the more you learn.
It's so true. I've learned a lot from my daughter with having to the first year I was there a lot with Brooke, and there's so much for young mothers. It's a very tough world because there's so much information. It's almost too much. My worry is that you lose your intuition. And reading so much stuff, you sort of lose what you naturally would do with your child. And it really became clear when I got a puppy this year. And I just let everything just go with intuition and love and I realized I could have read all the books and I should have been, maybe. And then I went, no, this is what mothers need to do more of with their children. It's just be intuitive and loving and feel what's right, because it's different for every person. We're puzzles. And that's what I love about a nutritionist, is that I love to solve puzzles. So what blood type you are, what metabolic type you are, and all those pieces come together. So when you sit in front of me, I do a lot of listening because I need to know who you are in order to help you with nutrition, just like a mother with a child. Everybody is so unique. You can't read what you're supposed to do with sleeping patterns and things like that, because every child, every mother, every connection, like our connection, through the years and all the amazing productive things that you have done, even with all that, I still wouldn't know if I would need a lot of information to know how to connect with you if we were close friends or.
Wow, you see, and grandmothers drop so much wisdom in a few sentences. But I love what you just said about mothering instincts and intuition, and I couldn't agree with you more. I see so many women in my practice that are overwhelmed some days because they're really trying to figure out what to do, what to feed their children, how to manage them at school if they're having a challenge or health concerns, and there's no shortage of information. And and sometimes there's even judgment and criticism about women's choices. And I think you need to really step back and respect what works for individual characteristics and temperaments and family life. Some families have one parent who's away most of the week. And so what's going to work in that family is going to be different than a family who's got both parents at home every night. So
I admire these single moms who have raised children, and they have taken their child into the bed at night. That's their connection time. They need to do that, and whatever works for you, it's about love, and it's about peace and inner peace. And if you can go to bed at night just feeling loving towards your child, really. It was difficult. I had times where we had moved from the city up to the country, and
a choice you had said in our pre-chat that you made for your children.
Yes, it was hard. I mean, I was condemned for taking my daughter, who was very cultural and learning piano and doing all that, up to a log cabin hobby farm in New Lowell, from the beaches in Toronto, at the grade 3 level, and Scotty was in grade 1. People thought I was nuts, and there was some pros and cons to everything that you do, but I really feel they became children again. It was almost like they were growing up so fast where they were. And everything, material things were so important. And then all of a sudden, we're wearing green garbage bags instead of $500 raincoats. It was quite fine with an IGA bag. Brooke will kill me because she's very into Holt Renfrew and fashion and everything. But I have great pictures of them. That clothes didn't matter, and they went to New Lowell School, and it certainly was very beneficial for my son to get and just be a natural nature child, nature boy. We were by a river, we had 3 barns, we had animals, but it was challenging because we left our friends and they thought our kids wouldn't get the culture and get all those things and have after school activities. We didn't have anything. We'd go and make a tree fort or walk around out in the woods. So it was a different world.
With all your years of parenting, your children are adults now, and you've got a granddaughter. Is there any time of parenting that stood out as the most challenging? I mean, you said that time when you relocated from the city to the country was a challenging time, but did you struggle with anything during their teenage years or school age years? Anything come to mind really strongly for you?
Well, I think I was so, I look back and I'm really thankful that I did some things that I had to do, and they weren't easy. And one of them was to take my son out of school.
Really?
Yeah, I took him out. It was just I knew something had happened, but I couldn't put my finger on it, and I just knew. And it turned out, that he had been bullied, and it was...
Was that your instinct?
Yes.
That mother's instinct that you knew something was wrong?
It was the teacher that had bullied him. Yeah, and of course they came down on me hard for pulling him out.
How old was he?
It was kindergarten.
Okay.
It was senior kindergarten. He had an amazing first year. And then the second year, he started wetting his bed and started being, it was not him. Mm-hmm. And you can sometimes think, it's something you're doing or whatever, that maybe you should have, maybe it's something they're eating or they're watching on TV. But we didn't have TV at the time, which was great. But I went right in and took him out until they would meet with me and let me into the classroom. And they did not want to do that. It was a big school in the beaches. Mm-hmm. And I found out later what had happened is that, some really awful thing had happened to him in front of the kids with the teacher. Mm-hmm. And so that was my instinct. I thought, this is not right. Something's happened. And I had to give up working for 2 months, but it was the best thing I ever did. Mm-hmm. It was the hardest thing, and I was not talked to by a lot of the mothers. And
so what did you, so many mothers go through difficult choices like that. Yeah. And can be really personally difficult, right? Yes. You might lose friendships, you might feel ostracized, you might feel judged. How did you cope with that at that time then?
Yeah. You just focus on your child.
Yeah.
And their happiness.
You knew in your heart what you were doing was best.
He stopped, having night terrors, and he stopped. And you know what? My children were both sensitive to the point where if other children in the classroom aren't doing well, they don't do well themselves. And so I made a difference in the classroom, in the whole classroom, because she knew that she was being watched now by the...
And you were an educator during those years?
No. I was going. Actually, it made me start getting my ECE.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I need to be in the school system and see what's going on. And I became an ECE because I saw how incredible the connection between a mother and a child is, and I needed to take that compassion into the school system. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I did. So I worked with special needs children for 15 years in the Simcoe board. Mm-hmm. When we moved up, and it really is a wonderful thing to be with your kids in the system, and then you're off at the same time. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can definitely attest, as can many parents. Some people you can tell when they love children and they are connected with them, and you enjoy being around them versus just paying, tolerating them, so to speak. And my son has fond memories of art classes with you and sessions with you, and so do lots of other children. So that gift and intuition for you definitely followed it in the right direction.
I always think, if this was my child, what would I want for them? Whenever I'm dealing with a child that's maybe misbehaved, or you try to get to... I find art is an incredible therapy. I would really love for any parent that's going through something with their child, just pull out paints and paper and pastels, and just it's really a very calming... When you go to that creative side, the right brain, instead of trying to get to the body, get angry about situations, art can be very soothing. And so I did an art camp just last week, and I had two, challenging girls in my class, and people were just handing them to me like, I can't have them in the same room, but I had them side by side doing art, and they were no problem at all. I always found that. I never had behavior problems at all in any of the art classes.
No.
And it was really interesting to me, because it's like soothes the savage beast kind of thing. Yeah, I really thank Michelle Fleming for taking me out of Pretty River to run the Bay School of Art children's programs. Mm-hmm. I've
kind of blended two of your passions, the creativity and the childhood.
I know, and I was able to help with nutrition when I'm working with children too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was my next question. Let's fast forward to where you're at now, which is tell us about your change of career path.
Yes, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I was 50 years old. I was having severe headaches, and it seemed like I missed so many things in my kids' life when they were in high school, because I was on the couch with an ice pack or a heating pad, just trying to survive. I would still go to work, which I was working at Admiral Collingwood at the time, and I was just so sick with headaches. A headache is a really disabling thing. You just keep going, but you feel like life is going on without you, and you can't be creative, and you just survive. Yeah, you're in survival mode rather than
thriving.
Thriving, exactly. And so I thought, this is crazy. So I went to a lot of doctors, and I went to physios and chiropractors. No, I didn't actually. Yeah, I was going to a chiropractor, which really helped with being balanced physically. But I was labeled with lupus. Yeah, they told me I had lupus. They told me I had fibromyalgia, all the stuff, and I just didn't buy that.
Is it your instincts again?
My instinct again was that I'm not going to live to that label. And all of a sudden, just Oh, I know what it was. I moved to working at Pretty River, doing the kindergarten program with Judy Scarrow. And I really wasn't feeling I was doing a good job because of these headaches. And so I gave up this really amazing job, actually. It was hard. Like, I had to walk away from it. I couldn't put it on hold while I became a nutritionist.
Mm-hmm.
I literally walked away and started paying to go to school in Toronto at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition. And I was driving 5 hours a day. I was sitting in school for 5 hours a day and doing 5 hours of homework at the age of 50 with headaches and going through natural menopause. But it saved my life. So
did you have an inkling that something nutritional was going to affect your headaches?
Oh, and it so did. And it was simple. I was deficient in oils. I started on the omega-3, 6. And my thyroid was an issue, and it was hormonal. It was everything was just combining. And then I realized I had been eating MSG in some of those TV dinners that at school they had a cooler, and you could just buy one for $1. So right at lunchtime we would have a Michelina dinner or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the MSG had built up too. So I had to detox myself. I had to hydrate myself, and I had to deal with thyroid because I was having hot flashes like 20 times a day. I remember writing an exam for herbal, and I couldn't see because there was so much water on my exam. I had to get another paper. It was just insane. And it was hard. I mean, every time you thought you got to the Krebs cycle, or you had gotten to the bottom of things. No, they took it another layer. And most of these kids were 25 and 30 in my class. Everybody over 40 had dropped out. I had doctors and lawyers and everybody in this nutritional class. And I was so proud of myself to graduate with honors at the age of 50. And it healed me. And then my first client I was driving home after graduating that day, and my last day of class, and it was a chiropractor had told me there's this young man and he's dying, and nobody can figure out what's wrong with him. And I'm going, oh,
yeah, that's an easy way to walk into your career.
Holy mackerel! And nobody. He walked in, this beautiful tall man, and he just 21 years old, and he had dropped out of university, and he was wasting away. And no one had asked him what he had eaten. And within 2 weeks of just putting him on fresh, whole foods, he was eating at Copper Blues every night. That's it, he just was eating dead food. Right? And he started putting on weight. He came in and picked me up and swung me around and gave me a big kiss. And he went back to school. He graduated university. It was just
life
food,
back.
Just food. And I thought, oh, I am so in the right place. Right?
What a great way to kick off your career, though.
I know.
Yeah.
The first client.
So I want to talk about that for a couple of reasons, because one, I think it's phenomenal, you pursuing something new, right? A lot of people at 50, career changes, you realize that you wanted to change your direction personally as a woman. Not easy at any age. So can you talk a little bit more? I mean, so many women listening to this right now might be thinking, oh, I'm not really thrilled with my work, or there's something else out there, or their intuition, might be guiding them to pursue a different passion. Do you have any suggestions or advice about how to make those steps a little easier? Do you just jump and go for it, which is essentially what you did by quitting, leaving your work and pursuing it. But
it does help to have a supportive partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it actually, it kind of was part of why we broke up, was I became a nutritionist and my life was really different.
Mm-hmm.
But my husband was very supportive, and he just said, go for it. You're not having a quality of life being sick.
Mm-hmm.
And so that that did help, and I just signed up that day, and the rest is history, because it has made such a difference to be. When I went through the divorce and going through breaking up, it was so difficult. And the only way I really felt good was when I was helping other people get better. And it's incredible how powerful that is when you're down and you're out and you can't even sleep at night. And I really became an insomniac. Right? I remember one night, the only way I could survive through the night was counting the beads on my bracelet, just over and over again. It was really difficult.
Divorce is not easy at any age or stage. I share the same sentiments. When I was going through divorce in the early stages, it was certainly the right thing, but it's a roller coaster of emotions. And my children were, 3 and 7, and starting a new business again, and then moving and relocating and renovating. And there were times when it was exhausting and my mental state was not 100%. But as soon as I walk into my office and I start working with people and I put my hands on someone, everything changes. And I think that's probably why I worked a little bit more than I maybe should have at that time, because it was so soul-soothing for me to be able to put my passion of the work I do into everything else.
And you kept being an amazing mom, because I remember you bringing Ty to my art classes and through that too. And I thought, what a happy little guy he is. He's really...
you just do what you need to do at the different stages, right? And I mean, my hope with the podcast here is for our listeners to see that whatever they're going through, they're not alone. There's lots of families that are struggling with their relationships, or struggling with a child that's ill, or a child in school, or and everyone is got something that they want some support with, and you're never alone. So what do you say now? So you work with a lot of moms now, still today, and now in a bit of a different role where you're helping them figure out how to feed their families. What are your pieces of advice about being a good mom with your kids, and trying to get through those tough days where you're sleep deprived and
really. The sleep is a really, really powerful tool for healing for themselves. And so whatever it takes for people, some people they're not getting enough protein and they're not feeding themselves well, and they need to take care of themselves. As a mother, the kids are more resilient than you think, and I love it when a mother comes in to see me, because I feel like I'm not just helping a mom, I'm helping a whole family. And honestly, they're craving sweets, and it's just a matter of building up their protein, and good quality proteins, of course, right? But each person, often it is listening to what's going on in their mind. What would it take to make you peaceful enough to choose good foods for yourself and your children? It is the way of the future, is for us to be going back to raw, natural, unprocessed, sugar-free. It doesn't have to taste terrible to be good for you, right?
I can attest to that, because Barb was so kind to bring these amazing healthy cookies this morning, and my son gobbled one up pretty quickly, as did I.
I'm going to leave you the rest.
Yeah, and they were full of oats and hemp seeds and not very much sugar. And
walnuts and butter and organic oats, so that there's no wheat. There was no wheat in those. And you don't need to add the requirement was like 3/4 cup of brown sugar. And I just kept cutting it down and down and down. And if you just used spelt, you didn't even need any sugar at all. It is finding those things that you love to eat. I'm not about putting anybody on any kind of a diet. It's lifelong learning of eating and what makes you feel good. Think about how you feel after you eat something. And that's huge. I myself go down for Kawartha's ice cream once a week down at the chicken truck, because I just feel so good, and I love that. And I take my puppy, and they give her a little treat too, and it's soul food. I call it soul food. But if I had ice cream more than once a week, I feel it, and it feels happy. And so, it's knowing what you can eat. And also, it's how you eat. It's when you eat, and it's chewing your food so that when it goes down, it's not hard on your stomach to break down the proteins and each part. The digestive system is so incredible. And as soon as you start feeling that it's not working, it's telling you your body's out of balance. And that's what first started for me, was my digestive. And I should have, got on the probiotics and had digestive enzymes and everything right from the beginning. So then you don't create this imbalance in your body. And just whether you're burping or have gas or whatever, that something's not right.
It sounds like your work as a nutritionist brings you a ton of joy. Yeah. What else brings you joy? What do you love to do when you're not with your clients?
Well, I'm still running art classes with the kids, and I just seem to have a natural way. I thought that I could just go into nutrition, but I seem to need to be with children. And it was just such a successful week last week. The stuff that these kids produced and made and spewed out all these great things, and it's setting up an environment where they feel safe and loved, and the creative things are just on the table. I don't give them any end product kind of stuff there. So I love doing that. I mean, I love hiking in the forest, Pretty River Forest. I love being around trees. I'm more about a river than a big water. That's where I feel most in touch. I really love my church, Trinity United. I play handbells and help out there. Music is really important. And the ladies, belonging. So I'm pretty lucky because I have like 3 families plus my own. And I have my Trinity family, and I have the Stonetree family, and I have my Pretty River family. And so my excitement right now is waiting for my son's first baby.
Oh, second grandchild is arriving.
And she should, it's going to be a boy. He's arriving around the 20th of September, so not even a month away. I already have my ticket booked for Calgary. So sadly it's in Calgary, but it's what it is,
So you chatted about the joy of being a grandmother and how it changed things right at the beginning. What's it like, chrenting children through, babyhood, toddlerhood, adolescence, and adulthood? A whole journey, I would imagine.
It's so beautiful. What you just want for your child is to be happy. And I've been really lucky because both my children, Scott and Brooke, have partners that they love and love them. There's a lot of adoration between the couples, so that's really wonderful to see as a mother. And so now they're both going off and creating families. They've both bought houses where that they feel settled in, which is really neat. Because I had lost everything. I'd lost my home. I saw my car being towed away. It was like down to nothing. So to see them settled and happy is really, really important. And then with seeing this new phase of being a grandmother and watching your children, it's just incredible. I'm so proud of my daughter. Like, she just, her whole life is taking care of this little girl, despite having a really high-profile job at Hope Renfrew. But then she's home today. She FaceTimed me, and I went, "What?" And there she is, home because her daughter's not well. So.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's a very tough world in the corporate world, especially depending on what company you're with. To be a full-time, and there was something on Facebook with, when you're at work, you're supposed to act like you don't have a child, and when you're at home, you're supposed to act like you don't have a job. It's impossible, right? Impossible.
It's not a fair position to put most women in, because I feel as strongly as we have passions and career drives and ambition, many women that are mothers have a strong pull to be with their families intuitively, and trying to balance both those pulls. Your right and left arm, so to speak, can be a challenge if you don't create a lifestyle or have employers that can support you in that.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. So, you don't have to worry when that your grandchild is being so looked after. And it's so fun. Just the last week, I just went down. I went down one day, looked after Lauren. They even though they pay the nanny, I just took her for the day, and they let me have her. And it made such a difference just to reconnect once a month like that. I really missed not going more often, but between me working every day and Brooke working, it just wasn't working out.
Is there anything that you would look back now and wish you did differently at any stage of your kids' lives, whether they were babies or toddlers or teenagers or young adults? Or let's say, would there be any advice you would now look back and give, young moms with, again, toddlers or adolescents or teens? All different, having said that, all very different parenting stages. But.
Yes. And I like to think that I hope that I took care of myself, because everything was based around the children when they're, and it almost gets like at the age of 12. That's when you sort of go, okay, I've done the best I can, because their friends become their most important allies, and you just need to wait for when they need you then. And it was really good. I'm glad. I think we had some really good, healthy boundaries around, and we actually would reverse roles sometimes, where we would just leave the kids to run the house, and we would go upstairs, all right, you close up. Whenever we felt we were not being appreciated or weren't, it was the kids were like thinking didn't know what we were doing, we let them sort of take over the role, and it was kind of a cool thing that we did. And there was a time when we left the kids for overnight when they were like 14 and 16 and ran the house, and they didn't know, but we didn't leave town. They thought we were long gone, and I always felt good when I backed away, because you can get too involved in their lives. I
agree, because I think we can certainly enable. Other humans, adults rather.
Yes,
but we can certainly enable our children. And my boys, they remind me now, because if I'm home in the morning, for example, in breakfast. Which is more often than not the case, and I like to make them a nice breakfast. But if there's mornings where I have to work or there's other things going on, and I take off for half an hour, they take care of everything. They make themselves eggs, they get their lunches ready, and I feel like when I'm around, they'll accept the help, but they are very capable of doing it themselves.
And you know what? From being an educator for all those years, and still, I see that children who are neglected it's very similar to children who have helicopter parents.
Interesting.
The same kind of neediness and not able to do things for themselves and not being an independent, happy child. So it's like two extremes.
Produce the same end result.
The same result, being a helicopter parent, where you're so involved in everything your child is doing, and
there's such a sense of pride when they accomplish something. My oldest son is going off to high school, and so this week, we're getting, his room's getting a makeover, right? He's getting all the little boy stuff that's moving itself out, and he's getting all settled. And, I said there's some holes in the wall from, posters and stuff he'd had up that need to be fixed. And so I just said, you can do that. And I didn't really tell him. I showed him really quickly. Well, when he was done, he came down. Mom, he goes, I did them all. He goes, but even that really big one behind the door, I fixed that. Like, the sense of pride that I observed in him was such a reminder to me that they need to have those experiences of trying something and figuring it out and letting them do it. Even if they do it a different way. Sure, when I went up and looked, it's going to need to be sanded. But he had such a sense of pride that he did it. And it's going to encourage me today to make him do more of that stuff, because that's where you build your self-esteem, right? Is by learning how to do things and realizing you can do things rather than people just telling you can. If you never get to do it yourself and everyone does things for you, you never get that sense of purpose.
It took me having to go off into the world at 50, 52, I guess, 51, where all of a sudden I was had to do everything myself. And I'd always had a partner for 35 years, right?
That must have been we haven't talked about that, and I think we're running out of time, but...
It's huge though, but it just showed me I can do all this, right? I didn't need to be I needed to be in the driver's seat more. And I think we need to do that with our children, is put them in the driver's seat more often.
Well, I knew we would have lots to talk about, and I know we could continue. There's so many other things we could chat about, but I feel we do need to wrap things up. Any final thoughts that you can share as a grandmother? If you ran into a woman at the grocery store, a mom, one piece of advice you would give them?
Don't say anything. Just be there, just like you are with your teenagers. When your children have children, unless they ask you for advice, don't just be there. There was one time I was so in the corner, and my kids didn't even know I was there, and I was holding the baby, and Indy comes down and he gets dressed, and he forgot that I was even there. But that's what you need to do, is just be there for your kids. Right?
Yeah.
But just wait till they ask you what you needed. You don't want to create a situation where they're feeling like they're not doing the right thing. And just, if they love their child, they'll do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. So if your toddler is walking out of the house in his Batman costume, just let them do it.
Oh, for sure. Brooke went out in 2 different shoes one day to Sunday school because she couldn't put the second one on and wanted this one. So, I mean, really, who cares?
Well, and even that, again, last night my son was wearing his baseball cleats. We were out running errands. I'm like, why are you wearing your baseball cleats? He's like, well, they were just the closest ones, and they're super comfortable.
Oh, my God.
Really? What's it to me? It doesn't really matter to me.
Yes, that's
what you wear.
Thing.
And I just laughed at him, and he laughed at himself. And it's a wonderful journey, the experience of being a mother, and there's certainly nothing like it. So thank you so much for your time today, and wish you all the best with your continued growth of your nutritional consulting and all the different places that's taking you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
There you have it, a great story today from a mom who rocks. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. When you do that, I'll be sending you a copy of my top 10 tips for moms. These are some of my personal practical strategies I believe that as women we can all benefit from and help us be emotionally and physically as healthy as we can be. When you're also there on iTunes, I would also love it if you left a review. It's really important to leave some reviews because that helps other people find the podcast, and it helps inspire them to listen and potentially gain some insight from the podcast. Tell other moms that you know would benefit from this show, or most certainly nominate them and let me know who you think I should be interviewing. I'd love for you to connect with us on Facebook as well. Head on over to Everyday Rockstar Mom and join our community there. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.